Hi. Today we're going to talk about Tchaikovsky and the influences in his life as to his struggle with belief. Tchaikovsky lived from 1840 to 1893. In 1877, he was helped with his composing. He was freed by the generosity of Madame von Meck, who became his patron, who helped him with an allowance, an annual allowance, so that he could keep on doing the work that she appreciated. They never met each other, but they corresponded for 13 years. And that correspondence produced many of the source material for biographies of Tchaikovsky. One that they mention here as an excellent one is called Beloved Friend. He was a compulsive correspondent, Tchaikovsky, and he also kept a diary. But he never met von Meck, but they corresponded and they had a genuine love for each other and appreciation for each other. So once Madame von Meck freed him from teaching, because that was how he was getting his income before, he formed the habit of work which remained with him for the rest of his life. Even when traveling, he tried, not always successfully, to follow the same routine. From 8 to 9 in the morning he would drink tea and read his Bible. Then he would work. Later in the afternoon he would walk. Having read someplace that in order to keep healthy, a person should walk for 2 hours a day, this he did with scrupulousness. It was on the walks many times that the work of composition was initiated, ideas tried and jotted down in little notebooks. He felt strongly that an artist must not give in to that powerful human trait of laziness. Like most artists, Tchaikovsky craved solitude, so his ideas would not be stolen from him in breezy, indifferent conversation. And that may be one of the reasons that they decided not to meet, von Meck and her. She appreciated his need for solitude. So much of his work, it says, was done because of his feelings for people. So it mentions here that Swan Lake was originally planned as an entertainment for his nieces and nephews. He was a gentle man, but lonely and frustrated. He said, quote, regretting the past and hoping for the future without ever being satisfied with the present. This is how my life is spent. Unquote. Madame von Meck was a strong atheist, an intense and dominating woman. She was proud of her independence of God and society, and often chided Tchaikovsky for longing to feel the Christian truths more strongly and to have a more secure faith. In their biography of Tchaikovsky, Bowen and Meck include this revealing excerpt from one letter Tchaikovsky wrote to Madame von Meck. Quote, on one side, my mind refuses to be convinced by dogma. On the other hand, my education and the ingrained habits of childhood, combined with the story of Christ and his teaching, all persuade me, in spite of myself, to turn to him with prayers when I am sad, and with gratitude when I am happy. So I thought that was a revealing quote, because you are impacted by the company you keep and by the people you talk with. So we have to get the right balance. I'm not trying to say that we should never listen to someone with different opinions, but I do think we should be sure that we have a good balance. We should be able to articulate our faith. We should be able to face challenges to it. So we need to be aware of what we are taking into our mind and the proportions of it. We have to ask ourselves, what is molding me? Is it secular thinking? Is it, or is it the Word that's molding me and making me and influencing me? And what is the proportion of time we're spending in both? If you're soaked in one and never looking at the other, you're in danger. So either of being blind to anything else and not being able to articulate what you believe, or to stand up against opposition. We need to find the balance. I think our best example of someone who did this was Paul, the Apostle Paul. The Apostle Paul says in Romans 12, verses 1 to 3, I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will. For by the grace given you, I say to every one of you, do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment, in accordance with the measure of faith God has given you. And then the example here, you're supposed to use your mind, and if you soak it in God's Word, it's going to have the results that one would want as a Christian, to be thinking like God. But at the same time, Paul felt comfortable when he went to Athens and spoke to people without his belief. He was able to speak with them, and he knew their stuff. He quotes poets. So I'm thinking of Acts chapter 17. So it's good to look at that and see that he was an educated man. He was able to speak to what he believed, but he was knowledgeable of what other people thought and believed. And we need to get that right balance in our life as well. So we will put a link to Tchaikovsky. I hope you listened to the link that I forgot to mention in the previous one of Beethoven. Okay, so thank you for listening.